We are constantly bombarded by societal expectations, whether we realize it or not. There's a preconceived notion of what kind of person we should be, especially with respect to gender norms. Boys and girls, and eventually men and women, are expected to act appropriately, fulfilling their roles as perfectly as possible. This can be seen quite clearly in the difference between so-called boys' games versus girls' games. Throughout history, men have been expected to be laborers, soldiers, and leaders. Think Trucking Simulator, Call of Duty, and Hearts of Iron. On the other hand, women have traditionally been expected to take more domestic roles. Think Stardew Valley, The Sims, and of course, the various 2000s flash game sites like girlsgogames.com. These sites filled with games for girls are the template upon which Lacey's Games, a horror series and now official game by Ghost Tundra, is based upon. However, Lacey's Games is not just your average horror game with jump scares and disturbing faces. Its deeper messages seek to comment on the darker side of girls' games, and by extension, the reality of being a girl/woman. Before I begin, spoiler warning. If you want to play the game yourself, it is currently free on Steam. Also, a content warning for blood, abuse, mental illness, and stalking. Lacey's Games opens with a visual of a Windows XP desktop, which was the standard computer for this era of flash games. You are hooked up to a bunch of electronics and are being uploaded into the computer by the supposed scientist, Grace Aesop. Before you are done being uploaded, you realize you forgot to complete an assignment, but Grace tells you it's too late. Grace is dumbfounded at the fact that you were worrying about college instead of admiring her genius. These details are important because of the perspective we are taking on Lacey's Games. The demographic for these girls' flash games is quite young, and introducing us to the fact that our explorers are college-aged instead of children informs us that this is going to be more of an exploration of the past. Grace's line about her genius also characterizes her as a somewhat self-absorbed person. Once your upload has been completed, Grace explains that what lies before you is Lacey's Games, an old website co-founded by Grace and her partner, Rocio. Exploring around the website, you can find some fan mail, including a drawing with a particularly hateful message at the bottom, telling a kid that their art sucks and never to draw again. There's another similar quality drawing that has a positive message, so it isn't really about the art. Rather, the hateful message perhaps alludes to the decline in the mental state of the creators as time went on. The first game on the website is Lacey's Wardrobe, taking inspiration from probably the most common of the girls' games, dress-up simulators. The game is simple. You dress up Lacey for her various daily activities. It doesn't really matter what you pick. Anything works. First a picnic, then shopping at the mall, and then a date. The disturbing part revolves around what is first only in the background. In the right corner of the picnic scene is a face, obviously spying on her, and they state that they love Lacey. Then, while getting dressed for the shopping mall, you receive a call, presumably from this face.
Lacey, did you see my text, Lacey? I can wait to meet up, Lacey. I want you. Perfect time tonight with you, Lacey. Tonight. Bye.
He states he can't wait for the date tonight. Lacey and the game become distorted, and at the mall she pleads with you. Help, he's going to kill me. Finally, at night, there is a constant knocking at the door, and in the top section, there is an icon that says there's a gift on your doorstep. It doesn't open fully, but we can tell it's bloody. Then another phone call.
Lacey, I'm here. Did it in the gift, Lacey? Did you like it? I'm here. Open the door, my darling. Open the door. Open the fucking door!
The caller asks if she likes the present, and demands she opens the door. Lacey pleads with you, please don't make me go outside. When you do, she simply states, "What have you done?" followed up by screams. The face appears fully now, and states he ate Lacey's remains, so they can be together forever. Grace comments sarcastically, "Charming, isn't it?" You can thank Rocio for that. Seriously, what's her damage? In this game lies the first major theme of Lacey's games, the perversion of girls' activities by bad men. The unfortunate reality is that women are often preyed upon by creeps. Especially with young girls, there is the danger of older men. This vulnerability is ever present and can create a feeling of paranoia in many women. In other words, girls' dress-up games are tainted by the objectification and sexualization of everything women do. But a key detail is that it doesn't matter exactly what Lacey wears. The stalking will happen regardless. The danger isn't in choosing the wrong clothes. It is all dress-up that is dangerous, because the danger is inherent to being a woman. This is the most straightforward and likely interpretation of what Rocio is trying to convey in making this game. Alternatively to viewing the man as a literal creep, a more abstract interpretation could be that the man is symbolic for society as a whole, that the cannibalism is metaphorical for a loss of personhood. You play dress-up to be eaten, like a cake that is decorated before consumption. The stalking would be representative of the inescapable nature of this. In this reading, the game may be trying to tell young girls that dressing up is nothing but a performance. This could extend beyond just men. Men may view women in a harmful way, but women can also judge and demean other women. Society is superficial and will eat you alive. Even now, Rocio is being demeaned by her co-founder Grace, with any message Rocio is trying to convey here being met with nothing but, wow, she's crazy. In any case, Lacey's wardrobe serves as an introduction to the dark themes and messages that Rocio wishes to convey in her work. Continuing on, the next game is Lacey's Petshop. The premise is once again easy to follow. Help people make their pets look pretty. All proceeds as normal, and Grace tells you that the bad stuff is a little more hidden in this one. In order to unlock the hidden secret, you must click on the dog's face 20 times. Then there will be a new batch of customers. These new customers are notable because they don't want simple things like for you to bathe their animal or comb their hair. One lady wants her cat dyed purple, with red contacts put in their eyes. Another wants her bird dyed black to be goth or emo. More extreme requests involve a woman who wants her hamster to have a long neck. So you pull and stretch the hamster's neck, not once, but twice. Or a man who wants teeth glued into his turtle's mouth. Finally, you cut the ears and legs off a bunny so that it's just a torso. Nothing particularly bad happens to Lacey herself in this game, but there is certainly meaning behind what is happening to these pets. One way to interpret this disturbed pet shop is it being a metaphor for how we conform. Women, and men too, are expected to look and act a certain way, even if it may not be what we truly are. All of these pet owners want their pets to conform to their standards, even at the expense of the animal. Women often dye their hair, sometimes for fashion, but also to keep the appearance of being young as they age. Certain body parts are desired to be bigger, and so augmentations are made. The teeth of the turtle are for smiling, which women are often told they need to do. The bunny then represents something much darker. Our journey continues when the dog reappears, and a message from Lacey flashes the screen. What is said is elaborated upon later. Before us lies a house and a cat whose skin was stolen by a bird. They say, "I have been hurt, and so I will hurt others, and will not let you pass." To the left of the house you can find the cat's skin and return it to them. Now they will let you pass. The first room inside the house has a bunch of pigs eating flowers. Then a flashing message. "I've always known what you are, from the moment you first touched me to when I found myself stepping over the remains of your skin glued to the floor. You had no regards, I had none either. You squealed like a pig. This had been my childhood dream. The one you took from me. I collected all these bruises for years. My spine hurt as if a needle went through each seg. Once I got used to it, I didn't think about it anymore. But you made me." From this, it is clear that this game is a little bit more personal to Lacey or Rocio herself. The house is likely her childhood home, and inside she was abused. Flowers have often been a symbol for innocence and purity. Meanwhile, pigs are often symbolic of gluttony and selfishness. Putting these things together paints a picture of the men in Rocio's life hurting her for their own selfish gain. The message also alludes to a breaking point during which Lacey was pushed to an extreme and may have fought back and killed her abuser. In the room to the right, there is a clock with time going backwards, symbolic of how we are going back in time to Lacey's childhood. Lacey herself is in a cage. She says, "Yes, I know no one forced me back inside, but this pain hurts too comfortably." This idea is common to those with trauma, who often find themselves coping in potentially self-destructive ways. Lacey also says, "Oh, I found a key in the middle of my edgy moment. Now it just feels dumb." This is a literal key we need to go upstairs, but also could be representative of how sometimes looking back on situations, it always feels simpler to solve than it was at the time, and we can make ourselves feel stupid for not saving ourselves sooner. Upstairs in the first room, a creature crawls out from under the bed. It says, "But it never was real. It was a bizarre story somehow hacked into my mind, but it never was real." Perhaps alluding to the fact that the victims of abuse are often doubted. Children especially are vulnerable to not being believed. Now we are presented with a nighttime scene. Lacey talks about getting a cat and wanting to get ice cream, but she can't right now. He's still under the bed. He'll look at me. But after all this is over, maybe I could also go shopping. Furthering the idea that Lacey killed her abuser, perhaps this is the night of the incident, and the body is under the bed. Then appears a distorted picture of a person and a dog with their eyes covered. My sweet little doggy, my little angel. I couldn't take it anymore. You can hurt me all you'd like, but weren't allowed to take it from me. I will let you rot. There were numerous clues leading up to this, but this is the most direct confirmation we have that the incident that sparked Lacey's change in behavior was losing her dog. This adds context as to why it was the dog that needed to be clicked on in the pet shop to unlock the secret. The second to last room of the house is a bathroom. In the mirror is Lacey, but perhaps also Rocio herself. We see a distorted figure and a woman wrapped up in cables. The figure asks us, "Do you like playing games on your computer? I made lots of games for you. These are real girls' games." This line clarifies what had been going on with all these games. Rocio wanted to show us the dark side of girls' games, the real girls' games. Perhaps she did so to try and protect the young girls of the world by warning them, or perhaps she did all of this simply as a means of venting her trauma. In the last room, we meet a candlehead Lacey. She recites for us a poem of sorts. "I sleep with my eyes open, staring at your eyes on the ceiling. You've breathed into me for years, a flame that eats at my bones, and not one day goes by in which I don't smell your skin, as if it was my own, and want to rip it out of me. But I'm a silly little girl that believes in lies, that I can be just as happy as them. So I'll let myself die again, for it always has just been a game in the end." After this poem concludes, the last game opens up, Lacey's love meter. Grace almost says she and Rocio made it together, before disowning it by saying, "I have nothing to do with these freaky little trauma dump games." Once again, showcasing that even fellow women and supposed friends of Lacey are dismissive of her struggles. Grace says that Lacey's love meter is a little glitchy, and perhaps you should go looking for a clue in the last game. There, a screen pops up and asks, "Are you lost? Ego despicio mendacium," which means I despise lies. Lacey's final message is, "I've been watching you. Look around. What are you looking for? A vertebrae full of synapses, a succulent brain moist in fluids and blood. I see it. Make me happy. No one loves me like he does. Input codes, Lacey and Uncle. When you input it into the love meter, everything breaks, perhaps revealing that the abuser in Lacey's home was her uncle. In the end, it is clear that Lacey's Games are an exploration of the darker side of girlhood and becoming a woman. The highly idealized and simple girls' games of girlsgogames.com fail to include any nuances, obviously because they're for kids. Rocio/Lacey intended to disrupt this by informing children of all the bad things that make our world so scary. A lot of the criticisms of the world that Rocio makes are unfortunately true. I think that it is important to acknowledge this, rather than dismissing it as Grace does. Which begs the question, is it really to the benefit of children to play real girls' games as opposed to non-real girls' games? It's a complicated issue for sure, but there is certainly something to be said about an inherent bias towards considering darker things to be more real, when in contrast, one could also consider a more optimistic view of life to be just as real because good things do happen. Rocio/Lacey are obviously quite hurt and troubled because of the things they have experienced. Their worldview is dark, and although the desire to educate children on the realities of the world is justifiable, it doesn't necessarily mean it is the right thing to do. I think that Rocio is meant to be a tragic character, rather than someone we agree with fully. We instead are meant to understand where they come from and hopefully learn something. The best answer is likely somewhere in between the overly idealized, perfect depictions of womanhood and the dark, grim trauma showcased by Rocio. I think that children's games should stay innocent, but maybe sticking to such traditional gender roles only makes the issues Rocio warns about much worse. Thankfully, I think that as time goes on, gender norms are relaxing, and more is being done to promote healthier and more realistic ideas about what men and women should be. At the very least, we've come a long way from the women are property that used to be the norm 100 years ago, and I can only hope that more progress will be made soon. Perhaps sometime in the future, we will look back on Lacey's Games as a time capsule of a bygone era. With that, I think I have said all I have to say about the Lacey Games demo. I do plan on making a more complete video when the full game comes out, but for now, if you enjoyed the video, feel free to like and subscribe. Thank you to my Patreon supporters and subscribers, and see you next week.